Welcome to the Hymn of Ash and Echo. Before the story begins, a brief message. By decree of Adam, one of my earliest subscribers and the channel's crypt keeper. I wrote this story, as with everything on the channel, but the voice you're hearing is AI, a stand-in while I continue my voice acting training. Now, the hunt begins. This is the Kill List Saga, Episode 6, The Hunter. The first rays of sunlight painted the night sky a deep, dark blue, clashing with the crimson and gold of the twin moons. Twisting beams danced across Fenberg and its high stone walls, casting long, distorted shadows over every timbered building, 3 silhouettes shifting with each breath of light. Haldric crouched in one such shadow, deeper and darker than most, hidden among the ruins of a southern tenement. The city walls loomed overhead. He watched. He waited. Bub slept curled across Haldric's shoulders, his slow breaths tickling the back of his neck. The door cracked opened. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped outside. One arm missing, the other gripping a woodsman's axe. A second, larger axe was strapped to his back. He yawned, spat, and looked around. Just like the last 3 mornings. A ritual of sorts, so was the small, lazy smile that spread across his face when she stepped out behind him. Freyhilda. Haldric's eye twitched at the sight of her. Short and stocky, her blonde hair cropped close to her head. 3 claw marks stretched from cheekbone to chin. Whatever beast had left those scars nearly killed her. Haldric would finish the job. They kissed, smiled, and walked in different directions. He went to the forest, and she to the main gates of the city, where 9 other men waited for her, for their tracker. Haldric had listened in on last night's meeting. He'd heard them petition the Hofmeister for a hunting right, heard their plans, heard their prey, Skarnfang, the Blood Maw, the apex predator of the Grimhollow forest and its marshes. They meant to enter the cursed woods, kill the beast, and return to Fenberg in time for the autumn festival, its corpse lifted as a trophy to mark the end of another raid season. Fools. Haldric stood as she disappeared into the still dark city. The torches had long since burned out. Soon, so would she. He walked through the twisting shadows, eyes scanning the narrow street. He found the crack in the stone, slipped his knife into it, and jerked. The door swung open. An empty, dark, and cool house lay waiting. He stepped in. Bub finally stirred, his claws sinking into Haldric's shoulder as the beast awoke. Yawning and jumping down, sniffing the floor and furniture. Haldric let him snoop. It would be wrong not to, considering what he was going to do. He rummaged through the kitchen, finding utensils, plates, and cups, but no letters. He moved to the next room, the pantry. Fresh, salted, and dried meat hung from the hooks over crates of salt and worked hides. Haldric moved to the next room. He opened cupboards, drawers, and crates, finding clothes, weapons, and jewelry, pocketed it, as well as all the coins he saw, and continued to the last room of the house. And there, finally, he found the letters, a whole stack of them. Haldric moved back to the kitchen and sat down. Spreading the letters on the table before him, something crashed in the room next to him. Haldric sprang up, twin knives in his hands, eyes staring at the door. Bub growled from the darkness, and it sounded off. Haldric stepped forward, eyes darting around. Did Freyhilda or her husband return, or had someone seen him break in? Haldric's legs tensed, his back bent, the grip on the knives shifting. Ready to move, ready to kill. Bub's furry hind legs peeked out of the pantry, straining under some unseen weight. Haldric watched the little beast struggle, dragging a stack of fresh ribs out of the pantry, growling at it as he walked backwards, his claws digging into the packed dirt for support. Haldric sheathed the knives, sitting back down, and began sorting. Irrelevant information, such as Hofmeisters' orders, was discarded immediately and thrown onto the dirt-packed floor. Bub didn't give up. The pup dragged the ribs all the way to Haldric's chair and began eating. The cracking sound of ribs and the munching sound of bloody flesh filled the room. "Take something smaller next time," he said, glancing down at the pup, his gray fur crimson with blood. Bub growled in response, but never stopped devouring his catch. Haldric shook his head, returning to his search, and he found it. The first of many, a letter penned by Arnwin's hand. Then another and another. Dozens. Hildewin, Arnhart, Edtra, Wulfgrim, Sigrim, and many others, all fenced in among them. He had made Haldric's life easier. Haldric almost regretted killing him so early in his journey. The man was an exemplary records keeper. Those same records, in fact, led Haldric here to Freyhilda's home. He found a few more, all from Hildewin. One line stood out amongst the others. "Edtra hasn't responded yet. Have you heard from her?" And she never will, Haldric thought. He stood, stuffed all those letters into his pack, and headed out. Bub not on his heel. Haldric turned to see the pup still ravaging the ribs, almost all 11 pounds of it gone. Bub grabbed the last 2 ribs in his jaws and dashed across the packed dirt floor. His claws dug into Haldric's leg, hip, back, and finally his neck, where he settled with a purr, the bones cracking between his teeth. Right beside Haldric's ear, they slipped out, back into the night and shadows, back into Haldric's realm, blood smearing his coat and tunic. The sun finally won its eternal war against the moons, seizing the sky in full, turning them bright blue and the day uncomfortably warm as its light spread across them and the earth below, illuminating the forest path Haldric rode on. The forest path Freyhilda and her hunting party took. He followed them at a careful distance, hearing them laugh and talk, but only catching glimpses of them through the trees and brush. But never Freyhilda. She probably rode ahead, scouting and checking for traps. Travel during raid seasons was not something most men did lightly, especially not in the fall season. They got brutal before the winter. The threats of freezing and starvation were quite real in the Empire, and even one coin made a difference between slow, agonizing death and painfully frozen life. The raiders would rob villages, towns, travelers, and even merchants. Especially merchants. 12 men in a hurry across an open road with no fortification, no way to hide, and a lot of goods and coin. Perfect targets for any and all stamlords who wanted to make a quick profit without risking any of their men. However, that carried ramifications, including blood feuds and legal trouble. But for travelers, they had no such protection. No one would even bat an eye. No one would even question who killed the poor travelers. It is simply a case of bad timing, mistaken identity, suspected spies, or an advance force. By the time the dust settled and the corpses were looted and the truth came out, well, it was simply too late to do anything about it. And it's the raid season. They should have known better. What fool travels the Empire during the raid season? Haldric was the name of the fool, and he knew very well what it meant to be outside the walls at this time of year. Something moved in the trees. Haldric looked up at a strange, small rodent running across the branches and jumping from one to the other. Bub stared at it, his big green eyes tracking the rodent, teeth bared and claws extended. "Do you want to hunt it?" Haldric asked. His voice sounded strange in his ears. The Bergtant pup bit the air, claws sinking into Haldric's shoulder. "Go, but I won't wait," Bub growled, his tail swishing from side to side. Hind legs tensing and testing Haldric's shoulder below him. Then he jumped, not down, but up, directly at the tree. The claws ripped the tree bark as the little beast climbed, eyes locked on its prey, never darting away. Haldric let the stolen horse follow the path, his own eyes glued to Bub. The Bergtant pup rushed over a branch, then up another. The prey noticed, jumping to another and speeding away. Bub didn't give in, closing the distance and pouncing, and missed. The prey evaded, and the predator flew past it, claws slashing uselessly at the empty air. He hit the branch, scrambled for purchase, and rushed back in. The rodent scampered away. Haldric shook his head, returning his eyes to the winding forest road ahead. He saw a glimpse of them again, still hearing their laughter and conversation. And still he neither heard nor saw Freyhilda. Bub snarled overhead. Haldric glanced up, watching the little beast miss yet again. But he didn't give up. No, he changed tactics. Haldric watched Bub rush up the tree to a higher vantage point, then disappear among the branches and leaves. Smart, he thought, watching the rodent sniff the air, eyes darting around, and never look up. It wouldn't have mattered if it had. Not even Haldric could have spotted Bub's hiding place. The rodent finally calmed, turning in a circle, as if trying to get its bearings. The gray-furred beast pounced. Bub fell from above, claws extended, jaws open, a direct hit. Claws and teeth tore through the rodent's fur, and blood dripped from above. Haldric nodded at that. At Bub's cheerful gait, a carcass dangling from his mouth. At his first ever hunt, Bub fell onto his shoulder, teeth and claws tearing into his catch. The squelching of tough meat and crunching of the bones filled Haldric's ears. "Good kill," Haldric said as they continued. Bub growled, mouth filled with fur, flesh, and bone. The sun overhead moving ever westward, moving towards night, and his time to strike. The hunting party veered off the road long before the sun set. They split up into smaller groups, leaving only 2 people to set up the camp. Haldric frowned, watching from horseback, unsure how to proceed, unsure of what they were doing. Grimhollow was weeks away yet. If they planned on reaching the forest, they needed to hurry up, not set up camp with hours of daylight left, not break up into smaller bands, and scout the forest for what? Food. But no. He watched them gather rations before they left Fenberg. Haldric dismounted the stolen horse, tying the animal up. It didn't matter. Not really. Their plans were their own, and they wouldn't be reaching Grimhollow anyway. Not with their scout and tracker on his list. Not when he would get her in a few hours. Haldric lifted Bub off his shoulder, and the beast yawned, his gray fur littered with brown splatters, mirroring Haldric's cloak. He patted the little beast on the flank and headed off into the forest to scout the campsite and the surrounding woods. But there was nothing notable to see or find. The forest looked like any other in East Drevland. A big flat surface covered in trees, underbrush, and moss, birds flying overhead, and rodents rustling in the underbrush. A serpent stalking its prey. Haldric circled the camp twice more, studying its layout. A simple round spread of tents, with a fire in the middle. A cooking pot was already resting on the fire. He frowned, focusing on the area around the camp, but saw no reason for them to stop. He saw no reason for them to break apart, to scout. What were they expecting to find? Mushrooms and berries? Haldric glanced around at the colorful array of berries, red to blue, yellow to green, some edible, others poisonous. What am I missing? He asked himself, turning back to the camp, to the 2 men sitting by the fire, weapons resting on their knees, speaking in hushed tones. Were they tense? Maybe. But it was the raid season. He crept closer, trying to catch a glimpse of their conversation. Hoofbeats thundered through the forest. Haldric crouched down, listening. Horses galloping, at least 15, probably more. Coming from? Haldric stood, straining to discern the direction. But the forest and the leaves distorted the sound, bounced it off weirdly, carried by the light breeze, making it hard to pinpoint. North? Haldric turned north, the direction from which he came, where Bub and the stolen horse were in plain view. Haldric ran. The underbrush, catching at his feet, tripped him up, forcing him to slow down. But he reached Bub before the riders did, their hoofbeats growing louder and louder, closer and closer. He threw Bub over his shoulder, untied the horse, and ran deeper into the forest, away from the camp and the road. He hid in the underbrush, horse's reins held tight as he watched the road. Bub growled. They rode past him, some 30 Stam raiders, led by Freyhilda. Haldric watched them ride into the camp, his eye twitching, his scar itching, pushing him to move. But Haldric stayed, listening, waiting for the screams to start. But they never did. He stood slowly, eyes scanning the road, ears straining. He saw nothing but the trees around him and heard only the insects buzz. "What's going on?" Haldric turned to the camp, now hidden by the trees. Bub jumped down from his shoulder, sniffing the wind, teeth bared at the air. Haldric sniffed the air. The musky scent of earth filled his nose, mixing with the smell of horse, sweat, and a fresh scent of some plant he didn't know the name of. "What?" he asked Bub. Intelligent green eyes turned to him, teeth still bared, claws digging into moist dirt. Haldric watched Bub as Bub watched him, both unable to understand each other. Haldric tethered the horse to a tree. Whatever Bub smelled, it would have to wait. He needed to know what Freyhilda and the raiders were up to. He needed to see if it meant his plans had to change. Haldric crept forward, watching the forest around him. If he had planned a secret meeting or a betrayal of his hunting party, he would have placed lookouts, but she didn't. Stupid or reckless? Haldric thought, finally laying eyes on the camp, and the 39 men and women standing around the fire talking and arguing. The words that reached him were jumbled and muffled, barely understandable all but one. Hofmeister. Haldric frowned, moving closer, Bub suddenly at his side. The little beast watched and listened, ears twitching with the wind, and eyes darting between the men, as if he could hear and understand. Haldric stopped some 20 paces away, the words becoming clear. "No, no," said one of the raiders. "That doesn't matter." "It does," said Freyhilda. "No," repeated the man. "Not to us. Besides, this whole situation is strange." Strange indeed, Haldric thought. Watching the Stämmen argue with Freyden over something, in the middle of a forest, a day's ride from the city, during the raiding season. The whole scene was bizarre. "I've heard enough," said the man with short blonde hair, the leader of the Stämmen. Probably not the Stamlord. He was too tense, too eager to hold such a title. "We had an agreement," said the one-eyed hunter. "We still do," said the short-haired man. "But what you're suggesting is foolish." Bub growled at them. "What would you suggest then?" Freyhilda asked. "We kill him this winter, during a diplomatic trip, stage it to look like an ambush robbery. Who would dare attack the Hofmeister? Think," Freyhilda snapped. "We need the cover of the raiding season, and we need to be out of the picture." Freyden and the Stamm are planning an assassination mission, Haldric thought, watching the short-haired blonde man's face turn almost fatherly. Maybe I judged the man wrongly. Desperation, starvation, and winter make poor fellows, said the leader, as if he spoke to a petulant child. Stamlord and Godric permitted me to make this decision, and I made it. Allardwald, the Hofmeister, dies this winter. And until then, we should just what? Take it. He leaves your city within a week. You can hold out that long. Besides, you're going to Grimhollow, aren't you? That should keep you out of the city for long enough. Freyhilda bristled, turning her back on the man. You are not really planning on going after the Blood Maw? Said a boy among the Stämmen. Now we might have to, said the third hunter, the oldest man among them. 10 people should be enough. We managed with less. Doubtful. May the gods protect you, said the leader, mounting his horse. Men, we ride. There will be blood tomorrow. We need to rest. Haldric remained hidden, watching as the riders departed and the foul mood set over the camp, his mind churning. Fenberg's Hofmeister ruled over Osthofen and Bachmarkt, which was the same corrupt man Jottengrim worked to undermine, on the order of his Stamlord. Could that have been the same Stamm as the one from Osthofen? But no, it couldn't. One Stamm could never hold such vast areas. Too many things could go wrong. Too many opportunities for rivals within the Stamm Council to grow. 2 different Stämmen are working against the same Hofmeister at the same time? That was no coincidence. Or maybe it was? Allardwald was a corrupt man and was deeply hated by many, perhaps even more than Haldric had ever realized. Are the two Stämmen working together? Haldric asked himself as he watched the people in the camp at work. And if they were, was Jotengrim aware of it? Grimvold's pause, a thought crept into his mind. Did my killing of Jotengrim hinder the removal of such a man? Haldric saw the man in his mind's eye, just as he was at the end. On his knees, Weirdcycles exposed, begging for his life, not for his sake, but for the people of East Drevland, for his family's sake. His scar began burning. Doesn't matter, he muttered, looking at the tattooed names across his arms. The world's problems were many. His was only one. Finishing the list. Night fell, and the camp finally quieted, leaving only one man as the lookout. The oldest among the hunters. Haldric watched the man throw wood into the fire, gazing at it, then up and around. The man made a full circle, squinting into the dark forest, eyes passing over Haldric and not seeing him. The man's night vision was gone. Poor planning, Haldric thought, listening to the night creatures scuttle, hunt, and howl. Somewhere in the distance, a bird screeched, and the old man's back tensed, but he didn't move, sitting hunchbacked by the fire, staring at its dancing flames. Or Haldric assumed that was what he was doing. He couldn't see his face, not from his position directly behind him, away from the fire and its light. He did no such thing as poor planning. A branch cracked, and the man jumped up, spear pointing at the sound. He stood there, seconds ticking away, spear sweeping left and right, searching for whatever made the sound. Haldric moved. The man sat down, spear lowered carefully, his whole body tense. Haldric crept forward, a hand wrapped around his knife's hilt. Then he heard it, a muttered prayer. "O Freyhilda, guide our fate," the man muttered to himself. "Guide the blade towards Allardwald and his men." Haldric's eye twitched, hand unwrapping from the hilt. "Let the mourning on our land end." This man didn't need to die. He just needed to be out of the way. Allow my children's children to live in the world I knew as a young man. Freyhilda, great goddess of fate and mourning, allow this land to prosper again. Haldric wrapped his forearm around the old man's neck and squeezed. He jerked back, feet kicking and mouth working soundlessly. Haldric tightened his grip, counting in his mind as the man fought. 1, 2, 3. The man reached over, his nails biting into Haldric's face. 4, 5, 6. The man headbutted Haldric, the soft back of his head colliding with Haldric's hard forehead. The world flashed white. 7, 8. His body slowed, jerking one last time before falling still. 9, 10, 11. The fight left him. 12, 13. Haldric held the chokehold for a moment longer, and then lowered the man to his side. Slow and steady, Bub purring on his shoulder. "Gramps, I can't sleep." A man stepped out of his tent, his one good eye blinking at the fire. Haldric pounced, the man's eye focused, growing wide. His mouth opened. Haldric's hand clamped over his mouth. The knife slid in. A gurgle escaped his lips. Blood flowed. The man sagged and stumbled. Haldric grabbed him, ears straining. No one else moved. Good, Haldric thought, pushing the body back into its tent. The last thing he needed was for someone else to wake up, see the body and sound the alarm. The last thing he wanted was to be hindered again. Haldric walked across the camp, Bub on his shoulder, soundless feet taking him to his prey. To her tent, to her sleeping form. Haldric's scar burned as firelight danced over Freyhilda's scarred face, drooling and snoring, slack and carefree. Not for long, he stepped inside, the flap dropping shut behind him and plunging the tent into darkness. He lifted her cloak, wrapping it up. Haldric stood over her for a moment longer. Then he squeezed. Freyhilda's eyes shot open, darting left and right, wild and confused. Her scream muffled by her own cloak. Their eyes met. Panic replaced confusion. Her hands reached for him, but it was no use. Haldric held her down until she stopped jerking. He held her down until her eyelids grew heavy, until they closed slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. Haldric lifted the cloak, tied her up, stuffed a rag into her mouth, and hefted her up onto his shoulder. Bub growled at that, unhappy that something else took his spot. The little beast followed them out, its teeth bared at the unconscious woman. Haldric almost smiled at that. Almost. Almost an hour passed before Haldric pulled on the horse's reins, sure that they were finally far away from the camp. He tied her wrists, gagged her, checked the knots, the same way he had before, the same way he always would, and sat down to wait, a piece of jerky in his hand. Bub glared at Freyhilda, teeth still bared, a low growl rumbling in his chest, still angry that she took his place on Haldric's shoulder. Haldric patted his head, sitting next to him and enjoying his meal, striped venison jerky, the perfect road food. The tools of his trade spread before them. Another hour passed before Freyhilda finally stirred. She blinked up at him, eyes trying to focus. It took her a moment, and Haldric waited patiently. The letters in one hand and a needle in the other. She shook her head, and her gaze finally cleared, blinking up at him, then at the letters in his hand. "How?" she croaked. Haldric didn't respond. He just stood over her, looming, his eye twitching. "How did he know?" she asked, her voice cracking. Fear or pain? Haldric didn't know, nor did he care. Nor did his eyes waver as he stared directly into hers. The scar burning. "Just kill me," she whispered. "I don't work for the Hofmeister," Haldric responded. "What then?" she asked, suddenly breathless. "Villa Eltz," he said, tossing the letters into her face. "Don't lie. Don't obfuscate, or your husband dies." "What? Where is Hildewin?" She blinked at him, still not comprehending. "Where is Hildewin?" He pressed the needle slowly into the hollow between bone and tendon, the spot where the arm dies and burns. The woman screamed. "Do I need to ask again?" "No, no," she cried. "Hagenfeld." "East Drevland?" Freyhilda shook her head. "North. It's a small village around her homestead. And her brother? They run it together. And Sigrun? North Drevland as well." Her voice cracked. "He joined a Stämmen there. But..." She trailed off. "But?" Haldric's eye twitched. "I don't know where exactly." He stabbed the same elbow again. She screamed, tears streaming down her face. "I swear I don't know!" Her screams filled the forest, and he let them echo around them, distorted and muffled. Good thing he thought ahead. "Please, I don't know." "And Baldgar?" "North Drevland." Haldric remained quiet. "He moves a lot, works for the Hofmeister." She stumbled over her words. "Wulfgrim is a Stamlord in the southwest. He never said where. That's all I know." Haldric watched her squirm. "Please, I told you everything." "Tell me about the assassination," he finally said. "What?" "Allerdwald, the Hofmeister." "Why?" Haldric placed the needle under her eye, squeezing lightly. "The Stam wants him dead, so do we." "I know that." "That's all," she said, her tears running over the needle. Haldric shook his head. "Please." Her plea turned to a scream as the needle touched her eye. "One last time, who are you working with?" "Just Freyden and the Stam," she screamed. "But we are not the only ones." "Yes?" "I heard about other Stämmen working to undermine him, but not with us." Haldric removed the needle. "Please, just kill me," she whimpered. "I don't know anything else." Haldric obliged her. His knife kissed her neck. Blood flowed freely, covering her torso and feeding the earth under her. One more person his family could greet amongst the stars. One less person to find. One step closer to eternal peace for him and his. Haldric found her name on his arm, and the blade pierced the skin. Pain spread like wildfire, his blood bubbling to the surface, mixing with hers, rushing down his arm and into the ground, calming his eye and easing his scar. Haldric breathed, deep and steady. enjoying the fleeting moment of peace, savoring the night air and the forest's smells, the night bird's song filling his ears. But it wouldn't last long. It never did. Not until all were dead and his family at peace. He bent down, grabbed her coin purse, and left her there to rot like she had done to him and his all those years ago. From above, his ancestors watched him mount the stolen horse. They watched Haldric and Bub vanish into the deeper forest, swallowed by shadow. They did not cheer, they did not weep, they only waited for their peace to come, and it would. Haldric would make sure of it. You've just listened to The Hunter, Episode 6 in the Kill List saga. I post new stories twice a week, with the Kill List saga and the Collapse running side by side. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like, subscribe, and dive into the Collapse to experience the first days of the zombie outbreak, full of hard moral choices, regular people in irregular situations, and of course, some absolutely insane Barry moments. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.